And welcome back to the show. Our first guest today is somebody who is familiar with the Salar media waves. We have had her on the show before, a multi passionate woman who is not only advocating for women's rights throughout South Africa, but is very passionate about mental health and eradicating gender based violence. She's also the spokesperson for the NPO Women for Change. And this is how you've heard on our platform before, a psychology student as well. And I would like to welcome to our studios Bulelwa Adonis. Bulelwa, welcome to Salam Media.
Hi, Zahid. It's so nice to be back on the studio. Oh, I loved our last conversation, so I'm happy to be back.
Fantastic. It's always good to have you here. Bulelwa, we often talk about abuse and people think, yesterday we had an intense discussion about it. And very often people think, oh, you know what, now that you're out of the situation, you should just snap back to normal and continue with life. And very little is often discussed in terms of having psychological support for people who've gone
Yeah.
through any form of abuse. And later in life, as you progress, I often see that triggers come up. And even if
Yes.
the victims of abuse, male or female, may not realize where these triggers are coming up from. Very often, when you dig a little deeper, it's always come back to some form of abuse that has taken place at some point in their life. And I think
Yes.
this is something that we greatly ignore because we just expect people to snap out of it and to just continue and be grateful that they're out of those situations.
Mm. I'm so glad that you brought up this conversation. I think it's so important. I think, especially in a country like ours where we've normalized victim blaming, I don't know if it's because we believe abuse when it's external and we see the scars and we see the wounds and we see the bruises. But like you said, we have this tendency. I think why something like victim blaming is so normalized in our country is because we fail to recognize that there's internal wounds, that there's internal scars. Triggers don't come out of nowhere. Like you said, they are responses. And the thing about a trigger is it's a response to something that happened a long time ago. You can assume that you may shove something under the rug, but a trigger is an indicator that something hasn't been dealt with. That is usually abuse related.
So, when you're talking about normalizing this victim blaming and the internalizing of wounds, I think so often we make the mistake that exactly that, where we think that, oh, if only we see the scars,
Yeah.
then it's abuse. And if we don't see the scars, there's no such thing as abuse. So, how do you manage to give that support to women who are going through mental abuse, who are consistently victimized in the system over and over again? And I think that's a discussion on its own in terms of when you go and report or when you try and get help and you blamed for things where, oh, why were you dressed like this? Why were you in this setting?
Mm.
Why were you in this situation? What did you do that brought this on? How do we deal with consistent victimization when you even trying to find assistance or help or reaching out for support?
Mm. I think you asked such an important question because, like you said, so many of the systems that are intended to help us are usually the places where we are re-traumatized. We are, be it in our police stations, be it maybe getting a rape kit or something like that. We are usually re-traumatized in these systems that we're supposed to gain support in. I want to start off by saying validating somebody's story. I think one of the big things of our online support as Women for Change is we've seen that a lot of people, they really benefit from being heard, from being seen, and from being believed, especially in a country where we have downplayed the stories and the pains and the abuses of the women and children and any victim of abuse or gender-based violence in this country. Because like you said, this occurs to both men and women. It's not specific to one party. So I think validating somebody's story, hearing them out is of vitality. I know people may assume that this is such a small thing to do, but a
Mm.
country like ours has proven how doing the opposite has been more traumatizing, why it's so normal that victims are silent, why our statistics say that it's only like 5% of people who have reported the statistics that you see on our social media page. Those numbers are only an indication of 5%. So you can imagine the 95% of people people that have not reported their cases, that haven't spoken up. So that is quite telling of the fact that we don't validate people's stories, we don't hear them out. And I think that it's important to hear people. I think it's important to give them a safe space for them to be heard, because there is internal wounding, there is internal scars. So I think people undermine how profound it is to validate one's story, to hear them out. So I think we would start off by just hearing people out. I don't think we do that as a country. That's why I would describe South Africa as a safe haven for predators. So I think let's validate people's story. Let's believe victims when they speak. Let's hear them out, and let's support them. And to support them, it means if they want to speak, allow them to feel, and also comprehending that their emotions will deviate. There's going to be moments of denial. There's going to be moments of anger. There's going to be moments of acceptance. There's going to be moments of a depressive episode where it sinks in. There's going to be moments of acceptance where you actually recognize and accept what has occurred to you. So understanding that it's not a straight path, that this is a rocky roller coaster that they are enduring when one is on a healing journey. It's not a linear road. So also being patient with people is of essence, because I think, like you said, people assume people to remain who they were before their abuse, when that can't necessarily be true, because abuse and pain and trauma alters persona. It alters who you are, not in totality. I mean, I myself I still consider myself the same person after my own abuse, but I still will say that the after 19, I'm not the same. I'm still the same person at heart, but I am not the same individual. I can't necessarily remember myself before 19. And now at 25, I can recognize and testify through self that we can't expect people to remain the same when they've endured abuse.
I think, you've made such pertinent points, but I think exactly that in terms of altering your persona, because while you may be the same person, the way you see the world will change based on the
Mm,
experiences you've gone through. And it's not just the experience of abuse, but it's the support experience post that abuse as well, and
yes.
how people rallied around you, what people made you feel, how they interacted with you. And that, without a doubt, will trigger how you experience or how you impact and interact with the rest of the world. And I think people miss this because it is a huge part of who you are. And it also takes away a huge part of who you are, because you always wonder, things could be so different or could have been so different.
Mm,
And you almost get cheated out of a portion of your life.
yes.
And again, there's no accountability, because how do you get that back? How do you manage to pull that back again to be part of who you are and making yourself whole again? It's about just continuing. And I think you also mentioned all the various stages that people go through. And very often we miss this because we don't realize it's also mourning a loss, not just the experience, but the loss of
Yes.
a part of you, a huge part of who
Yes.
you are in abuse.
Absolutely. Sure. I'm so glad you mentioned that point, Zahira, because what you said is so profound. It's bigger than just the abuse. A lot of it is, like you said, the support, and we undermine that as a country. What you said is pivotal, because hence why we're so adamant on justice, hence why we are infuriated and motivated to do the tireless and mentally exhausting work that we do, because justice is of essence, and our broken system it doesn't help victims and survivors. It doesn't help us, because it it somewhat worsens the journey of healing, the journey of moving forward, because instead of people being by your side, it's almost like you gain more enemies, or
Mm.
things don't go your way. It everything that you said, I'm so glad that you shared that point. I think it's of vital importance that we recognize that as a country, and just as a human race, recognizing that we have a part to play, as society, how we treat people, how we're patient with people, because I love what you said about the mourning of self, a part of yourself, because that's so true. We expect people to be the same, forgetting that one is going to become depressed a bit. There's going to be depressive episodes. One might develop insomnia. We wonder why people start isolating themselves. These are symptoms of abuse, when people just seclude themselves and isolate and become and have suicidal thoughts and doubt themselves. And then the self-esteem goes down, the self-confidence goes down, because you are in a space where it's almost like an identity crisis because a part of you has been robbed from you, and people have anxiety. People may wonder why people having panic attacks continually, for instance. I'm just giving examples that people don't recognize when people endure abuse.
Bulelwa, I think huge pertinent points for discussion. We're going to be taking a quick ad break and continuing this discussion with you. Please stay tuned.
Salam Media.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za. After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with many appeal organizations in Gaza.
Yasin Badat Financial Advisory. Are your financial goals feeling out of reach? Yasin Badat Financial Advisory is here to turn your aspirations into achievements. Our dedicated team, armed with a history of success, is ready to guide you through the complex nature of financial and investment planning. Whether you're a seasoned investor or new to the game, our personalized solutions cater to your unique goals and risk appetite. Trust in our commitment to transparency, integrity, and excellence. Ready to unlock a world of financial freedom? Partner with us today. Call Yasin Badat Financial Advisory at +27 33 346 2071 or visit www.yasinbadat.com. Yasin Badat Financial Advisory, guiding you to financial success.
Attention drivers, revamp your ride with top quality tires at Best Drive Braamfontein. Our seasoned technicians guarantee a perfect fit for a smooth, safe journey. Choose from premium brands to budget-friendly options, all at competitive prices with special offers. From tire installations to brakes and shocks, we have all your vehicle needs covered. We also specialize in wheels, batteries, and suspension repairs. Get to meet our hands-on director, Mohammed Desai. With over 3 decades of experience, he ensures you receive exceptional service. Enjoy Salah facilities and a complimentary tea or coffee while you wait. Don't compromise on safety and performance. Ample parking available and full-time security on premises. Visit Best Drive Braamfontein today or call 011 837 4000 or 5000. We are 1 kilometer off the M1 highway. Take the Smith Street off-ramp towards Fortsburg, Fitas. Best Drive Braamfontein, where excellence meets service.
Hey Gulam.
Yeah?
Did I return your lawnmower last month?
No, bhai, you didn't.
Oh no. Now what'll I do? I wanted to borrow it again, man.
With Rendry Jewelers, you won't have to borrow or lend because the prices are so well trimmed on all gold and diamond jewelry. Alternatively, we could remake your old jewelry into a brilliant new design. Visit Rendry Jewelers at 151 Stevens Lamini Road, Musgrave, Durban. Rendry Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the Mid Morning Show. Today's program has been generously brought to you by Africa Muslim Agency, empowering, educating, and inspiring. You can find more information on their website, www.africamuslimagency.co.za. We're going right back into our conversation with Bulelwa. Bulelwa, I know that when we were chatting a little bit earlier with regards to the effects of it, how do we manage the cultural issues also of people coming forward as victims of abuse to be able to say that they've got support networks, because many of the South African cultures are very much of we sweep it under the carpet, we don't talk about it for the sake of the family, and then as we rightfully mentioned earlier, a lot of our systems drag it out to almost make sure that people know it's too difficult to come forward, rather just be quiet and continue with your life.
Sure. I think that's such an important question. I think as a country, it's important that we educate ourselves. So we already have multiple cultures. You know, we all deal with things in different ways. Different families in general, despite cultures, deal with things in their own ways. And I think that it's important that, I mean, even in me studying psychology, I understand and I comprehend that in the future in my profession, that I have to have some sort of understanding for every culture. I have to not bring my biases or my belief systems to the table when dealing with other people. So I think it starts with that, being professional enough to set aside your own biases, set aside your own viewpoints, your own opinions. Yes, we all have those things, but understanding that when we want to help our greater community, there are moments where we have to put our own ideologies to the side for a bit. I'm not saying let's throw away our cultures. That's definitely not what I'm saying. Especially in a country like ours that really is so proud of their cultures, so open and resilient to showcase their cultures. And I think that it's a beautiful thing and it's important that we do. But I think that it's important that we also recognize, for instance, the ongoing pandemic that's been in this country, something that was here way before COVID-19, something that will unfortunately be here for who knows how long. And with the way our country is going, the way our government handles gender-based violence and femicide, something like GBV and abuse and femicide is going to be amidst us for as long as possible because of how we don't take accountability seriously. So I think by educating ourselves on our greater community, when I read, I make sure that I have a comprehensive understanding on things beyond myself. So if I want to read about others, I will read about others, or I will have conversations with different people. Hence, I believe in the power of conversation. And I try my best to only say yes to conversations that will edify me, that will help educate and uplift the listeners. And I think that it's important that we speak to one another as different cultures, as different races, different genders, and just get an understanding and a background of where people are coming from. My apologies, where people are coming from. And I think that when we do that, we will understand how we can respectfully go about doing things, because I think sometimes we may assume that we're helping people when to some cultures it may be a form of disrespect, when really what we can do is educate ourselves on how different cultures do things. And then from there, we can find ways to find common ground in terms of helping and being supportive to people of different cultures and races, because that is quite a hard question to answer, because it's not like I personally have an understanding of the different cultures. But I think that educating ourselves, and it's bigger than just reading, having conversations, being a neighbor, recognizing what does my neighbor like, how can I benefit my neighbor. You know, we are so self-consumed. I say this all the time. Maybe it's because I'm someone who is I personally am not good at tending to myself. It's not the best quality I have, but I think it's because my heart is so called to serve other people, and I recognize that the world is bigger than me, that my calling and my purpose is bigger than myself. So I make sure that I can best benefit those around me, those bigger than the community that I'm in. So I think if we educate ourselves, have more conversations, recognize what cultures say, but then also being bold enough to make to speak up when some things are not okay, because unfortunately there are some things that can't change overnight. We have to be honest with ourselves, but then also taking accountability with your circle, with your friends, with your family, educating your family, educating your loved ones, those who will listen, have the conversations. If things can't change within your midst, within your external family, make sure that within your group of circle, your circle of friends, that at least you guys can hold each other accountable, that you guys can educate yourselves, that you guys can speak up when people need to speak up for themselves, and or to be the voice of somebody who cannot speak for themselves. I think that's very important to me.
I think you've mentioned so many topics and discussions as we've been going through this that we can further extrapolate on. But one of the things also is in terms of, very often people in this field, and especially as women, helping others tends to heal us. And this is how we end up healing ourselves in this process. So I think it is a form of self care, because you realize that giving a platform and being a voice for so many voiceless women gives you an ability to be able to stand strong in a tide where a lot is against you, where where you didn't have those voices. The one thing I want to touch on is we spoke about the various cultures and understanding different cultures to be able to understand how to approach different people around you in terms of abuse, and we have to be respectful of it, especially living in a country like South Africa. The one thing though I do want to touch on is being an advocate for the woman for change. Your platform has made it very evident that abuse is not specific to any race or religion or economic criteria. We're seeing it across the board. How do we lend support to women in general? Because, like we said at the beginning of the show, abuse is not just physical abuse. We could be looking at financial abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, spiritual abuse. How are we lending or opening those doors of support for women or anybody going through abuse? Because the platform highlights how significant it is. And I'm so grateful for your platform, because you're really bringing it to the forefront instead of just sweeping it under the carpet and we deal with it during 16 days of activism or during Women's Month.
Sure. I'm so glad you asked that question. I think a lot of the times people want to help, but a lot of people are triggered by our page. A lot of people are overwhelmed when it comes to our page. And I think if you are one of those people, it's completely understandable. It makes so much sense. I mean, our page is not easy to digest, but I think understanding the capacity you have within yourself, and as a South African, knowing the state of our country, knowing that we are the rape capital of the world, I think going out into the world and understanding that you need to be an advocate for your fellow sister, whoever that may be, in whichever environment you may find yourself in. I think it's just mentally going out with the intention of advocating for your fellow sister. If they need someone to stand up for them, if they need someone who will speak out to them. I think sometimes we see things. Maybe if your neighbor, you can see that they've isolated themselves, or it's little symptoms. I think look out for the signs of abuse. Look for if it's external. You'll see the physical scars. If you hear the crying, if you see the isolation, you see the change in their normal behavior. I think just reaching out and saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm here for you. If you need anything. Also on our page, you can find, if you DM us, we will normally refer people to other organizations that will give you like counseling or legal advice. Whatever you need, we can assist you guys with that. But I think for the greater community, it's coming together. And I think also our glossary is quite profound. We've had teachers, we've had journalists, people telling us that they look at our page and they educate themselves on like different terms. So when you see symptoms of something happening, educate yourself, read about it and see, wait, no, this falls under this topic or this term. And then explain it to another person that 1, 2, 3, this is what I'm seeing. Not overstepping your boundaries. Like you said, we have to be respectful. Not only do we have different cultures in this country, but we have different belief systems. We have different races, all these different things. So it's just merely being mindful of coming into the world as humans. I think we underestimate how scary it is to be a woman nowadays. So coming with empathy, I think being empathetic is quite profound. Not necessarily sympathetic, but empathetic. trying to put yourself in their shoes, trying to understand what their needs may be, trying to see that within your capacity, where can I help? What can I do? I think maybe it starts there. And to personalize things a little bit for those who can't necessarily do anything. I know there's a lot of young people who maybe want to be in this space, but they don't know what to do. I think I there's a poem that I like. I just forgot how it goes, but there's a line that says, when you shine your light, you give others the permission to shine their light as well. So I think we undermine how, like you said, helping others can heal yourself. So perhaps thriving in your own respective way, but not looking down on others, just with kindness, with grace, with excellence, with resilience and zeal. Perhaps you may not recognize who's looking at you, who you're inspiring, and I think we should also consider that.
Thank you so much. I think like one of our listeners has just posted up as well in terms of how traumatizing it is going down these routes of actually getting support networks. So our own systems have betrayed us. And I think this is what Bulelwa and I had discussed initially as well. Bulelwa, you make some very valid points. And I think you've given us really good tips in terms of actually just approaching anyone who's going through this, in terms of validating and hearing that story. And I think it's so important. We actually forget how important it is just to hear someone and to validate what is being said so that they feel heard. Because whether they go through the system or they don't go through the system, it's so important to have your story witnessed on this earth so that it doesn't just get shoved under the carpet or forgotten in the winds. I think, as you mentioned, approaching people with grace and empathy, and there's a very big difference. People of abuse don't want sympathy. They really don't.
No.
Nobody wants people to
Absolutely.
feel sorry for them. It's the empathy that is required. And that's so important to be able to exercise that. And I think most importantly, as you mentioned, is to treat people with dignity. Because you have no idea. It could be you in that situation, and those tables could turn just as quickly. So never approach it from a point of view of you can deal with this or you know how to do it. And from your own experiences, we have to treat every single individual with dignity. And I think this is something we so easily forget, and especially in the NPO sector when people are doing a charity work or giving out. And I keep saying, you have no idea. It could be you on the other side of that as being a recipient. And especially in abuse cases as well, it could be you. Treat people how you would want to be treated. Bulelwa, what is the way forward in terms of Women for Change? I know you are becoming, especially for me, of reading up about what's happening to women in South Africa. Where do you see this page or this platform moving forward in terms of its access to resources, what you're providing for the women of South Africa? Because you truly are becoming a voice for the women in South Africa.
Thank you so much. I think our biggest goal right now is if we attain funding, because I think that's our biggest problem. But if we attain funding as we plan to, thankfully our community has humbled us so much in the donations we've already received thus far. Because an organization like ours, we want to provide more than what we have right now. So we've hired a new team member, which is fantastic. We actually have a little bit of money to pay somebody, So I think when we get funding, we are definitely going to hire counselors for ourselves, because people don't only trust us, but they trust us to a level that a lot of people don't want help from other people. I think it's like you read a comment from a viewer that said that they were traumatized in the NPO spaces or in these people who are supposed to be helping them. So for like how we do things is we're dignified in how we deal with people, because we comprehend that number one, it's a human being. This is somebody who deserves love and compassion and kindness, and we treat them as we would want to be treated. So we will, with better funding, we will definitely hire more counselors so that we can provide personally, not just refer, but provide counseling. And then we can have like a permanent big team that a consistent flow of work can contain from. Because I think I say this all the time, people assume that Women for Change is this huge team, when really 90% of the work for most of these years was done by one woman, which is the founder, being Sabrina. And obviously I joined in and then I helped out for, I think it's been 3 or 4 years now. And like I said, we recently, I think a month ago, got a new person in the team, and there's other team members, but we want to get to a point where we can employ people. That is the yearning of our founders, so that we can employ people, so that we can be of better service, because people reach out to us and then they want to be escorted to safe houses and all these different things. So it's about securing a proper team for Women for Change when we attain funding, and actually being of better service, like increasing the workflow essentially, because we get lots of DMs, we do respond to all of them, but just picking up the pace, essentially what we're saying, having somebody designated to one party, having a faculty for the volunteers, etc. So just having, I think the biggest thing is having a designated team that is employed and that we can count on to better serve the community.
And we hope to actually catch up with you and hear all about that. Bulelwa, it's always an absolute pleasure to share the platform with you for your insights and your expertise and your experiences, and also for what you're doing, providing platforms and being the voice for the many voiceless people out there. Thank you so much for joining us on air today. I always absolutely love chatting to you, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon. Thank you, Bulelwa. Bulelwa is not just a psychology student, but she's also an advocate for mental health and eradicating gender-based violence, and also the spokesperson for the Women for Change program. We'll be taking an ad break and then coming back with the rest of the show. Stay tuned.